Okay, so guess what's blowing up behind the palace curtains? Meghan Markle. Yes, the Meghan who's always preaching about kindness, women's rights, and mental health is now the name that apparently gives royal staffers straight-up trauma flashbacks. Like jaws clench, eyes roll, deep sighs, all of it. Behind all that polished Netflix sparkle and empowering speeches, there's a side of Meghan that's finally starting to leak out, and it's not pretty. What lit the match this time? Not gossip, not shady anonymous tips. We're talking CCTV footage allegedly showing Meghan snapping at a hotel staff member so harshly that even her own defenders were like, yikes. And no, it wasn't even a screaming match. That's the wild part. It was this ice-cold, razor-sharp tone. Quiet, controlled, devastating. And here's the kicker. This wasn't some random bad mood. Nope. Apparently this kind of behavior was the norm. Palace staff didn't just whisper about it, they lived it. They even gave themselves a nickname, the Sussex Survivor Squad. Dramatic? Maybe. But also, kind of telling. More than a few former staff say working under Meghan wasn't just tough, it was emotionally exhausting. The microcontrol, the cutting sarcasm, the vibe that flipped from charm to chill in a heartbeat. One insider didn't mince words, they called it emotional terrorism in designer heels. Ouch. Let's rewind for a second. Remember when Meghan first stepped into royal life? Everyone was so hopeful. A modern duchess, a strong woman of color, feminist, fresh energy. It felt like a new era. But the whispers, they started early. And not from the press, from the inside. We're talking gardeners, assistants, stylists, even senior aides, people who had no reason to lie. One assistant swore Meghan made her rewrite a single email 14 times, and not with constructive feedback either. We're talking sarcastic scribbles like, seriously? Try harder. Ugh. The kind of comments that don't just critique, they crush you. And then there's the classic meeting moment. Someone's mid-sentence and Meghan just rolls her eyes and cuts them off like they're invisible. Sounds small, sure, but try enduring that every day. That's not tension, that's toxicity. But the real jaw-dropper? The Queen, yes, the Queen, had to step in once. Apparently, Meghan gave a gardener such a severe tongue lashing that even Queen Elizabeth had to intervene. That's unheard of. The Queen almost never meddles in personal drama, so imagine how out of line things had to be for her to step in. Meanwhile, Meghan's camp stayed totally silent, and so did Harry. That silence? It got louder with every new story. Like, people weren't just saying Meghan was demanding, they were saying she was cold. The kind of cold that makes your stomach drop when she walks into a room. The assistant crying in the bathroom wasn't alone. Staff say some of them still wake up anxious remembering those days. And yet, every time Meghan stepped into the spotlight, she was glowing, elegant, poised, talking about healing and compassion, standing up for the voiceless, promoting mental health. The contrast was almost surreal until that footage surfaced. Suddenly, those whispers had weight, because now there was allegedly proof, not just of a bad moment, but of the pattern insiders had been warning about for years. So here's where it really starts spiraling. Meghan's public image? Carefully crafted. She didn't stumble into fame. People who knew her pre-royalty say every move she made was strategic, not in a villain way, but in a nothing gets wasted way. Acting gigs, relationships, social circles, Meghan climbed every step with focus, total laser beam ambition. And honestly, that drive did make her fascinating to watch, but it also rubbed people the wrong way, especially the ones who worked directly with her. It wasn't about how she spoke, it was how she made people feel. One assistant said stepping into a room with her was like walking into a freezer. You'd hand over work hoping for a simple thanks. Instead, you'd get a stare so sharp you'd want the ground to swallow you whole. Another staffer shared this cringy moment. Meghan mocked her British accent in front of other staff, not playfully. She mimicked it, smirked, and let the awkward silence fill the room. And the worst part? Everyone laughed. Not because it was funny, because they felt like they had to. It wasn't loud toxicity. It was quiet, precise, emotionally draining. Emails picked apart like courtroom exhibits. Meetings tense and confusing. Vague instructions but sky-high expectations. One wrong step, you weren't corrected. You were humiliated. Multiple insiders said it was like walking on glass. Controlled manipulation that slowly chipped away at people. And while Meghan was out front championing mental health, the people behind her brand, some were reportedly breaking down trying to meet her standards. One former aide didn't even call it a job. They said it was survival. There were text alerts between staff. She's in a mood. Lay low today. That wasn't drama. That was damage control. Just trying to make it through the day without being the next emotional casualty. And here's the thing. It didn't stop when Meghan left royal life. This pattern, it followed her. She tried to rebrand. Clean slate. Private ventures. New companies. New team. New energy. Right? Nope. The issues came right along. Her lifestyle brand, Riviera Orchard, was supposed to be a big splash, a luxurious comeback. But insiders say it's the same mess on repeat. Micromanaging, last-minute demands, cold interactions. And get this, no one wants the CEO role. It's been vacant for weeks. They can't fill it. Because people know. The stories travel, the red flags wave high. People aren't jumping at the chance to be managed by Meghan. Then came the streaming deals. At first, glitzy, Netflix, Spotify, podcasts, a whole animated series. But watch what happened next. Spotify? gone. Quietly pulled the plug after one season. One top executive reportedly threw shade and called the Sussexes grifters. That word stuck like superglue. Netflix? Silent exit. No big announcement. Just quietly shelved her animated show and moved on. Industry folks noticed. Fast. What started as a golden partnership slowly turned into a whispered warning. People weren't saying she lacked talent. They were saying she was just too hard to work with, that she controlled every inch of a project, that she couldn't handle pushback without making it personal. Even her allies, the people who once sang her praises, started stepping back. These weren't trolls. These were her former teammates, staff, even friends. People with nothing to gain from turning on her. And that hits different. Because when the people who used to protect you are the ones quietly confirming the worst stories, that's not gossip anymore. That's a pattern. One ex-staffer described it like this. Meghan didn't need to yell. Her disapproval, it was in the pauses, the sarcasm, the stare. They remembered a calendar mistake, not even their fault, and Meghan just hit them with one sentence so sharp they felt 2 inches tall. She didn't correct me, they said. She annihilated me. Another said it was the most emotionally confusing job of their life. Meghan would be warm and glowing when Harry was around. The minute he left the room, icy silence. Moods changed on a dime. They even developed this radar system among staff, trying to guess how the vibe would be before meetings. Not because they were being dramatic, but because their peace of mind depended on it. And here's the most painful irony. Meghan's whole brand is built on kindness, being a voice for the voiceless. But the people closest to her, the people behind the scenes, say they've never felt smaller. One person even called her leadership style emotional warfare in expensive heels, and they weren't smiling when they said it. The cracks started forming. Supporters began questioning. Staff left in waves, not because they disagreed with the mission, because they couldn't survive the environment. And with every exit came more leaks, not splashy headlines, just steady stories from people who had stayed silent for too long. And Meghan's team? What did they do? Nothing. Silence. Or worse, PR statements polished to perfection, making her sound like the misunderstood hero of the story, but people weren't buying it anymore. Not after everything, not when the patterns kept repeating, and just when you thought things couldn't get worse. That CCTV footage, still not public, still under wraps, but the whispers about it, very, very real. Those who've allegedly seen it say it shows Meghan, mid-confrontation with a hotel staffer, not screaming, just cold, condescending, totally unaware she's being watched. That's what makes it so haunting. It's not a dramatic meltdown. It's a quiet, calculated moment, a glimpse behind the mask. And for a lot of insiders, it's exactly what they've been describing all along. If that video ever sees daylight, forget PR damage. We're talking brand collapse. No podcast, no rebrand, no apology tour is walking that back. Because the image Meghan spent years building, that brave, kind-hearted, empowering icon, can't survive a few seconds of unfiltered truth. And Harry? Still silent, no statements, no interviews, just silence. Which makes people ask, is he protecting her or did he never see it coming? Because now, that silence, it doesn't look like loyalty, it looks like complicity. This is where everything starts to shift. The fairy tale, the carefully polished narrative, it's all teetering. Because the public, they're not looking at headlines anymore. They're looking at patterns. And Meghan's pattern is starting to scream louder than any PR statement ever could. Think about it. When your whole brand is compassion, but the people behind the scenes, your assistants, aides, staff, say they were treated like they were nothing, that's not just a bad look. That's a reckoning. And honestly, it feels like it's already begun. That rumored footage is still locked away, still unreleased. But the damage? Already done. The whispers are everywhere. Insiders say it's Meghan at her most raw. Not unhinged, but calculated, condescending, cold. A version of her that's been described over and over again by people who've worked closest to her. The same version the public's never seen, until now. If that video drops, it's game over. Not a stumble, not a PR hiccup, a collapse. The kind of fall you don't come back from with a new product launch or a podcast about growth. And through all this, the silence from Harry? It's deafening. Because let's be real. When your partner is accused of making people cry, mocking staff, cutting them down with icy silence, and your response is nothing, that's not neutrality, that's a choice. Maybe Harry thought staying quiet was protecting her, but now, it doesn't read as strength. It reads like he saw the smoke and ignored the fire. Like he chose to believe the version of Meghan she wanted the world to see and closed his eyes to everything else. And that's the part that hits hardest. Meghan sold the world a message, empowerment, empathy, evolution. But the people who stood behind her say all they felt was pressure, anxiety, and pain. Her smile on stage? That was their silence behind the curtain. Her mental health advocacy? That was their emotional unraveling. Her bravery? That was their quiet suffering. This isn't about being flawed. Everyone's flawed. But when the brand is kindness and the receipts say otherwise, there's nowhere to hide. The fairy tale? It might not have ended. But the illusion? That's shattering. And now, everyone's watching, waiting. Because if that footage goes public, the mask doesn't just slip, it crashes to the floor. And what's left might not be a misunderstood duchess. It might be someone the world doesn't recognize anymore. So the question isn't just, what did Meghan do? It's, who was she really when no one was watching? And maybe, just maybe, we're finally about to find out. Finally about to find